Hi friends, this is Steve Gladen, and I wanted to jump in here really quick before we started this podcast just to give you an update on Ron and his journey. He discovered recently that he has colon cancer, something that he and his wife Barbara weren't expecting, but they would appreciate your prayers. He has a lot of wisdom to give out to this world and has a lot of books in store in his head that he wants to get out. But most of all, he needs the prayers and just the covering with his family. So as you listen to this, if you could be praying for him, I know he would appreciate it, and so would I. God bless.
Hello, and welcome to a special SG Squared. Pastor Steve Gladen and his guest, Ron Kelleher, recorded this episode at this year's Lobby Gathering event. Listen to learn how you can win a free autographed copy of Ron's new book. Ron and Steve Gladen each have over 25 years of experience to encourage and equip listeners like you to lead small group ministry. So let's listen and learn together.
Hey everybody, welcome to SG Squared. Steve Gladen on small groups. Only on this episode, we're at our lobby gathering that we hold every year, and I have with me Ron Kelleher, who I'll introduce to you in just a couple of seconds. But at this particular episode, we're just kind of getting Ron Kelleher raw. So we brought him into the studio, and we're just going to find out about his new book that he's got coming out and how you guys can win a copy of it. And I'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the podcast. But for right now, Ron, it's great to have you here. Welcome to SG Squared.
Oh, thanks so much, Steve. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here and all that. So, Ron, if you could, I know you're we've got like 30 years together.
Yes, indeed.
But the audience doesn't quite know that, doesn't know you as well as I want them to. And so, Ron, can you give us a little bit of your background? Let's talk about your family first. Tell us how long you've been married,
all right,
kiddos that you have, something like that. Because I see you every Saturday, 4:00 service, and so, but they don't. So,
all right. I have been married for 40 years to Barbara, the love of my life, and we have two adopted children. Justin is from India, and our daughter Rebecca is Filipino. And so we have quite the international house of people. Justin has special needs, so he's while he's 43 years old, he's still with mom and dad, and we help take care of him. Daughter is married to a wonderful young man and has given us two terrific grandchildren.
Ah, the old grandkids, I tell you.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but it's the greatest pleasure ever.
So true, so true. So, Ron, you walk us through a little bit of your, I know you've written a great ministry book. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. But walk us through your work career. I mean, just for giggles, what was your first job?
First job was mowing lawns, probably when I was 12, maybe even a little younger. I went around the neighborhood and mowed lawns for, I think it was like 50 cents an hour or something like that.
Wow.
That was back when the minimum wage was probably $1.25 an hour, so I probably felt like I was doing pretty good at 10 or 12 years old.
Knowing your business acumen, that does not surprise me. You went per hour.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite as educated as you. I just did per house.
Oh.
And yeah, sometimes they got a great deal. So with that, so good for you though. You're smart. So you have a quite an illustrious professional career in the marketplace. And can you just give us a brief snapshot of that piece at Procter & Gamble?
Sure. I spent 36 years with Procter & Gamble. I was really fortunate. I got hired right out of college. I grew up in Washington. The first job I had with P&G was here in Southern California in the Los Angeles area. So I packed up my car and moved and had a wonderful 36-year career. Started about, I think it was about the first half, maybe not quite half, 15 years or so I was in the sales department. Then P&G created a couple of new kind of different kinds of roles. They felt like P&G is a wonderful marketing company, and they felt like we could do a better job of helping some of our customers market our brands. So they created kind of some hybrid roles, and I had one of those hybrid roles where I worked on helping our customers learn how to market our brands better. And that led to some success here in LA and then the West Coast. And then ultimately I was doing marketing for national, on a national basis for our multicultural businesses. So supporting our African American and Hispanic communities in particular.
All right. And so when you were working at P&G, you know, what was the highlight of your career? What was that thing you loved the most?
Yeah, I think especially in the marketing phase of my career, the thing I loved the most was being able to do new things that nobody else had done before. Mm-hmm. There was a lot that was done nationally by our brand marketers in Cincinnati, but they didn't scope down into the local marketing. And so for me, I got to do a lot of things locally in different markets around the United States that nobody else had done before. And some of those things worked sort of, and some of them worked spectacularly. Wow. So, being able to invent new ideas and try new things was probably the thing that encouraged me and got me motivated the most.
Now, Ron, I know that you ended up taking retirement, but I know you, and I watched you not be able to sit still. And so you did exit the corporate world, and God took you on a little bit of a journey. So can you share a little bit about that? And I don't know where Saddleback, I know parts of your world. I don't know where Saddleback kind of, if you always went to Saddleback or, how'd that all transpire?
Okay. So the Saddleback was actually the third church, I think, that we had attended in Southern California.
Okay.
My wife and I grew up in families that were irreligious. I think it'd be the best. They kind of left it up to the kids to figure out what they wanted to do. And it was when we had children that Barb and I both felt like something was missing in our lives. And a kind neighbor invited us to church, and we went to a church up in Irvine, and that was terrific until that church kind of imploded. And we went to a smaller church in South Orange County and really loved the pastor, got so much out of that environment until they had a new childhood education person who felt like they couldn't manage Justin and his special needs and wanted to put him in a classroom of his age rather than his ability level. Yeah. And we couldn't do that. So we left there, and we're unchurched for a little while. And then one of my coworkers said, hey, there's this other church in the Mission Viejo area called Saddleback. You ought to give them a call and give it a try. So I called up and got connected to a wonderful woman named Pastor Ellie Edwards, who was responsible for the childhood education department. And this was totally a God intervention thing, because I talked to Ellie and she said, why don't you bring Justin and you come in here and we'll talk for a minute. And she said, a week ago, a woman that teaches special needs kids in the school came in and volunteered and said, if you have any special needs kids, I'll run the Sunday classroom for them.
Wow.
So Justin became the first of what Saddleback now calls Special Stars. Yeah. And so that's why Saddleback has been our home ever since, because there's a loving environment there for our son.
Wow. And you're just not just a receiver, you're also a giver. And so I know that when you took early retirement, that was a new bud that was growing and blossomed into many things. But walk us through a little bit of that journey, because you took early retirement and you said, I think Jesus has something for me.
Yeah. I had been involved with workplace ministry at Saddleback ever since Rick Warren wore socks and had hair, and so did I. Many moons ago, a young Rick Warren was being mentored And he realized as a young pastor that he didn't understand the business community as well as he thought he should. And so he had invited several of us business people in. We met every Monday afternoon in his office, and that began the start of the workplace ministry, reaching out to men and women in the workplace. And so over the years, I was involved with the workplace ministry in a variety of forms as a volunteer. But that led up to the retirement when I was 57. I really felt like God was calling me into a different phase of my life, that I wanted to be able to devote the rest of my life to Christ and specifically to the workplace ministry, where I'd been volunteering for years and years. And so I bravely talked to my wife about taking retirement early, and she asked me two questions. She said, can we afford to do this, and do we have insurance that'll help take care of our son? And I said, yep, we have both. And then she said, well, then you have to follow what God is leading you to do. So I retired in June of 2009 and started seminary at Talbot Seminary that fall of 2009.
As a Fuller graduate, I don't know if I like the Talbot story, but keep going with this, and then what happened?
So I graduated from Talbot with my master's in biblical studies and theology in 2012, and on my way almost out the door, I was recruited to be the chief operations officer of a missions organization here in Southern California. It was an old organization, and they brought me on board to help rebuild the ministry and reposition it to a younger audience. And so I spent a couple of years helping them do that. I'd been on their board for 20 years. So I was equipped to help them reposition the ministry. But ultimately, I still felt like my calling was to the workplace. So after helping out the ministry for a couple of years, I decided to step away and start focusing on what I think God had called me to do, which is really jump into the workplace ministry full time.
Yeah, and for a little bit of a backdrop there, I know you've been deeply involved in all the aspects of the workplace ministry. And at the end of this podcast, we'll be able to get some contact information for Ron, because I think, dealing in the small group ministry world, one of the untapped veins that you have in your church is mobilizing those people that work, whether they're working at a fast food place, whether they're working at a blue collar job or a white collar job. You have a whole harness of people ready to do some amazing kingdom stuff, but the church isn't equipping them. And so not only will Ron be willing to help you, but also his book is going to be a lasting guidebook with that. So a very beautiful piece. Ron, before we jump into that, I want to just let our listeners know that we're going to be giving away 6 copies of his book to 6 lucky people. A little bit later in the podcast, I'll let you know how you can win those signed autograph copies. That's what is going to take it over the top. But there's a lot of meat in those books. But Ron, you helped with the workplace ministry. You were a ferocious writer. Can you dive into that just a little bit, and then we're going to start to unpack your book?
All right. So my writing started as soon as I got out of seminary, and as I said, I was really focused on leadership, Christian leadership in the workplace. So I started writing a blog article way back when, and now I've written just 701. Yesterday I finished 701 article numbers.
Just 701.
I have published weekly over the years, and I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. So that's the backbone of the workplace leadership, Christian leadership ministry that I've formed.
Now, Ron, so we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but since you mentioned that you've been publishing weekly, if someone's listening and right now, where would they find those 701 bits of nuggets? And when Ron writes, by the way, he gives you your full money worth.
The articles are on the ronkelleher.com blog. And they're all right there.
Yeah. In the show notes, you'll see a link to his website. and you'll be able to enjoy that. But it's ronkelleher.com. And Ron, you wrote a book, just came out recently. We'll talk about another one that just came on the heels of this one, but that's another chapter we'll get into in just a second. But Kingdom Leadership, embodying Christ in the marketplace. So Kingdom Leadership, embodying Christ in the marketplace. Ron, talk to us a little bit. I know you know the book well enough. You could probably quote it, the whole thing, but give us an overview of who is the target audience of this, and what are some of the high-level pieces that people would get out of getting this book, Kingdom Leadership, if they aren't one of the lucky 6 people to get the signed copy of the Ron Kelleher book?
All right. The book grew out of actually the articles that I'd been writing.
Yeah,
and I had people say, hey, you should write a book. And I kept thinking, I don't know what I'd write a book about. And they said, but you have all this content, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of words. There's
millions
books in there. And so I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about the issues that most people in the workplace as Christians face. And that is that we as Christians are operating for the most part in a secular world, and we're going to have a challenge to integrate our faith and do it effectively. And that was what most of the people that gave me questions would say is, how do I integrate my faith in the marketplace? And we had done a survey, and we found that 80% of people that are Christians in the workplace said, hey, I know it's important for me to do this. I want to integrate my faith in the workplace. But nearly 70% said, I don't know how to do it. And about 60% said, and not only that, but I'm afraid to do it because I'm afraid it might hurt my career. And so with that as a background, it kind of helped form the structure of the book. I started looking at leadership characteristics of successful leaders in the Bible and looking at, over time, what worked out for leaders in the Bible, what made them successful, what characteristics did they have that made them successful leaders in one field or another. And so out of that bubbled up 12 specific characteristics that I thought were particularly important for us as Christian leaders in the marketplace today.
So when you look at those 12, Ron, I know they're all important. Are there a couple that stand out to you a little bit more as you're the ones that you love?
The two, one that I struggle with, and one that kind of is most enjoyable to me now in this stage of my life. The one I struggled with the most is the idea of stewardship. So I understood the idea of stewardship from a how do you use your money point of view.
Yeah.
But what I ultimately saw as I developed the framework of this book was that stewardship is a whole lot more than what we do with our money. Stewardship is all about all the resources that God has entrusted to us, and how do we steward those resources. So it's, yes, it is our money, it's our finances, but it's also our time, it's our treasures, it's all the things that God has given us. In the workplace, we have our time and our skill sets and all these other attributes and skills that God has given us. How are we stewarding those, and are we giving our best in each and every one of those things? So stewardship was probably the one that hit me the hardest as a young Christian leader, because I thought, I may not be doing the best I could with my time management, or with my management of my resources, or the management of the people that work with me and for me. So that one was a compelling one for me to work on.
I love how you even framed that, the one that you kind of struggled with, the one that you loved, and just all by itself, the stewardship chapter will be gold for you. But sorry to interrupt you. You're on a roll, but it really strikes me that you can take a very simple concept and there's so much depth to it that can help people. Because you're right. A lot of times, especially in the church world, you think of, hey, when we're talking stewardship, it is about money, but God gives us so many things that help with that. Flip it over on the other side. You said there's one that you do love, though.
Yeah, the chapter on prayerful leadership is the other one that I didn't really understand as a young Christian as much as I'd like to think I understand it today. As a young Christian, I felt like prayer was important surrounding my family and in individual things that I was doing, but it wasn't something that entered into my business life, honestly, not very much. If I was confronted with a crisis, I thought, what am I going to do about this? I've got to take action. And what I realized as I got older is, I need to slow down and I need to come to God and say, God, what should I do about this before I take action? And that's one of those principles that I saw with successful leaders in the Bible, people like Nehemiah, who came to God in the midst of so many crises, and he said, God, what do I need to do before I move ahead? And that was a lesson that I came to really appreciate as I got older.
No, I mean, that's so rich, and I love getting the perspective of people who have lived some life together, because you start to learn very quickly about the beauties. And again, another common word you hear in church world is prayer. But as you unpack this and you start to see the power of it and how it can help you engaging in the workplace, because so often we, especially depending on where you're wired, how you're wired, you want to do, and you want to get it done, and if you're working, you're trying to do the job right and trying to do it really well. But all of a sudden, when you get into spiritual matters, you're like going, God, I got this one, and how prayer helps out so much. So you got the book here on kingdom leadership. Who would you say, Ron, that this is targeted to? Who would manage best by reading it?
Well, originally, I felt like the target audience, if you will, would be a young Christian, someone like who I was when I first became a Christian, is someone who has committed their lives to Christ but is now wondering, okay, how do I now fulfill this calling of mine? How do I live out my faith in the marketplace? Because most of us don't come with instruction manuals that tell us exactly how to do that. And I don't think my book by itself is going to do that, but it will certainly paint a picture and create a journey that people can go on to help build up their framework of how do I live out my faith in the marketplace by following the 12 strategies and techniques that I talk about in the book.
Yeah, as Ron said, that just as you look through the table of contents, I know Ron's going to hate me when I say this, you can go to one that maybe gravitate to who you are and that you feel is maybe a growth area for you, but all 12 areas would help you so much. And even I think of my son and my daughter, who are both going through the early stages in their 20s of going into the work environment and being in the work environment, how each one of these 12 would help. All the way that when Ron asked me to get an advanced copy to read it, and just like going, oh my, these are little things I should sharpen my blade with a little bit, it's a good piece for each one of you. So, Ron, before I jump into the book that's following on the heels of this, anything else you want the listeners to know about kingdom leadership?
I think this is the greatest untapped potential for us as believers to impact the world. It isn't just this book that I've written, but the idea of how do I integrate my faith in the workplace? How do I embody Christ in the marketplace? If we can figure that out as a Christian community, we can change the world, one person, one workplace at a time.
Yeah. And Ron, I think, and you wouldn't say this about yourself, but he has got 36 years of working at a major corporation in the United States. And there's so much wealth of wisdom in there that you've navigated a number of terrains. And when you add, you're following Christ in how it's been embodied in you, you've taken the best of both worlds and kind of molded them together so that people wherever you're working can help out and take it to another place. You're listening to Ron Kelleher, ronkelleher.com. He just wrote his book, Kingdom Leadership, Embodying Christ in the Marketplace. I've known Ron for decades, seeing him do it practically in the workplace ministry at Saddleback Church. But Ron, you just on the heels of this, and I know you're a writer, but it's really ridiculous what you're cranking out. But give us a little taste of the book that's coming after this one, and then I want to let our listeners know how they can win a free copy of Kingdom Leadership.
Sure. So the Kingdom Leadership book took a while to actually write and then produce to get to the point where we launched it on March 1st. So while the editors and the designers and all the people were working on bringing Kingdom Leadership to reality, I was writing the second book, which is called Faith-Driven Leadership, which is a fun book to me. I looked at 20 different Bible characters, and I looked at their leadership strengths and weaknesses and how their faith impacted their leadership. And so that book is now designed, and we're proofreading it now, and that one will launch July 1st.
And when that's out and you're available to snag it, we'll get Ron back on the show right here and kind of dive into that. Because on SG Squared, Steve Gladen on small groups, we talk a lot about small groups, strategy, structures, things that can help the small group point leaders. One of the things I'd love to do is just seeing how we can impact the marketplace. Everyone's got to work, or they're doing some type of work. And even if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, you have influence with people that you're working with, and these 12 principles would certainly help you and take you to that new level. If you want to get a copy of this, if you email me at steve@smallgroupnetwork.com, that's steve@smallgroupnetwork.com, we're going to be giving the book, a free copy of the book, to the 2nd, 4th, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I do know my math fairly good, but if you're those people that are the 2nd, the 4th, the 6th, the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th person to just send me your address, say I want a copy of Ron Kelleher's book, Kingdom Leadership. You don't have to be that exact, but just let me know you want Ron's book. We'll mail that to you any place in the world. So if you're listening abroad, which I know a lot of our listeners are, we want to serve you as best we can. It may take a little while to get there, but we will get it out in the mail. So if you're one of those that hits the even numbers for the first 6 copies of the book to steve@smallgroupnetwork.com, you'll be able to get a free copy. Ron, before, as we're wrapping this up, is there something else you want to tell the listeners, and also tell us how we can get to know and how we can get in contact with you?
Sure. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is ron@ronkelleher.com. If you want to send me an email, you'll find I also have a Facebook page, Ron Kelleher on Facebook, and you can find me on LinkedIn under Ron Kelleher as well.
Great. Anything you want to tell the listeners as we're wrapping up this episode?
For your audience, Steve, I would just say take advantage of every opportunity you have to dig into your own leadership style, to see how you can embody Christ better wherever it is you live out your life. Whether you're in a church environment or a marketplace environment, it does not matter. We all should be embodying Christ in our everyday life. So dig in, find out what it takes to be a better leader, and be one every day.
Kingdom Leadership, Embodying Christ in the Marketplace by Ron R. Kelleher. I don't think I know your middle name. What's R?
Ray.
Ray.
Named for my father.
I love it. Ron Ray Kelleher, but it's Ron R. Kelleher. You can get that wherever your books are sold if you want to pick it up that way. But if I were you, I'd pick it up the freeway, and not like the freeway, the roadway, but a free way to get it, the book with that. So email me at steve@smallgroupnetwork.com. And if you're one of those lucky on the even numbers, we'll give you a free copy. We'll mail it to you. Just want to thank you for listening in on this particular episode. We're live at the lobby. We're just grabbing a lot of the people that are here and just helping you get to know their tender side and their strategic side with that. So just want to thank you for being a part of the show, and just want to say God bless and goodbye.
Thanks so much, Steve, for having me on.
You bet. God bless you, Ron. See you later.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to go deeper and get more resources or join the Small Group Network, just head over to smallgroupnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.